Hello again. This is Ben Hitchcock cross-talking you today with music, of course. We're gonna go with some Brady list stuff here. I think we should just probably hop right into it. We've got a fantastic TMJ article, and we'll get from there. All right. Um, and we're gonna talk about public records law if we get a chance to gas on. Maybe I'll make it a second video. So let's stick with this and take it away, Ben. All right, so here's the article. Duty to disclose MPD. Milwaukee County Sheriff's Office say they don't tell their officers if they're put on the Brady list. Bam. I wonder who heard that. That's completely unacceptable for an officer to learn through a media story that they're on a list that may impact their ability to testify in court, Jim Palmer said. Now, I'm just guessing that Mr. Palmer, that is the Sheriff Danita Ball, and I think the chief deputy there with the scrunch faces on. I don't know where that's from, but somebody took that out of context, I'd imagine. Before we get to that, let's look at the reporter, because we always do. Lighthouse, that's their investigative reporter. Uh, I'm so glad I don't have to look handsome. It must be stressful. He comes from Milwaukee, after from Wichita and Des Moines. And that, I think, is always what's the most interesting to see here. Okay, you ready? Frustrations about transparency are growing after our special lighthouse investigation, Duty to Disclose, reveals dozens of Brady list officers are being left in the dark. Duty discloses their titles of their stories in general. That is completely unacceptable for an officer to learn through a media story that they're on a list that may impact their ability to testify in court. That's severely problematic, said Wisconsin Professional Police Association Executive Director Jim Palmer. Now, that is, I won't call it a union. It's more of a trade and lobbying group as much as anything else. People are represented by them and they do provide legal services, but they're not the union of police officers for Wisconsin. Do police officers deserve to know if they're put on the Milwaukee County Brady list? I mean, I think that's how could they even not? How could they even not? The question is being raised after our Lighthouse team learned that the two largest law enforcement agencies in the county do not tell their officers that they're placed on a list of cops with alleged credibility issues. I guess the question was, and then they let them continue to work. Um, the DA's office wanted to keep the full Brady list a secret from the public until DAJ. Yeah, okay, so they did hire an attorney, and the DOJ, the Wisconsin Department of Justice, told the DA that they would probably lose. The Wisconsin Professional Police Association says officers should learn that information not from their department, not news reports. Do you think that the police department should alert the officers that they're on the Brady list? Reporter Jordan asked. That's ultimately for them to decide. Ultimately, District Attorney Ken Levin replied, they work for them. Um, Here, by the way, let's just see Mr. Ken Levin here. Um, let me, yeah, let me kind of propose something to the contrary. And I guess I'm interjecting here on this, but I'm going to propose something to the contrary. And this is from Bruce Velmetti of the Journal Sentinel back in the day. This is 15 of the byline here. We can look at that. In the new open records case, Thomas Woznicki invokes the Woznicki rule. And what's the Woznicki rule, you might ask? Let's read about it. Nearly 20 years ago, a high school teacher's successful fight to block release of his personnel file resulted in the Woznicki rule, the dawn of a dark period in the history of Wisconsin open records law. Whoa, dawn of a dark period. Now, I fight the Woznicki rule on both ends of it, and when I'm fighting on behalf of a employee who's trying to protect the uh, their good name from mere allegations, I'm fighting like crazy for the Woznicki rule. When I want to get mere allegations for evidence for something else, I'm fighting like crazy against the Woznicki rule. That's how that works, I would say. But a dark period, that may seem a little far. Now, Thomas Woznicki has invoked a related law in an effort again to block the release of those same records by the New Richmond School District. Woznicki, 55, moved on from New Richmond to serve as superintendent in Florence and most recently Boscobel, home of prison, where he resigned last summer after just a year in his position. According to his lawsuit filed in St. Croix County, he received emails last year from a John Batchelor claiming Woznicki may have abused Batchelor's sister while she was a student at New Richmond and later at Lawrence University. Woznicki denies Batchelor's implication and says he sued to block release of the old records because a taxpayers group, Citizens for Responsible Government, also has sought the records, and he wants a judge to see them first. Now we're going to get into what's the Woznicki rule. Woznicki's eventual Supreme Court case grew out of similar claims. Woznicki taught at New Richmond High School from 1987 to 1997. In 1994, he was charged with, something really inappropriate, criminal, with a young pupil, but the charges were dismissed 3 months later. That caught up on me. I didn't realize it was that bad, but I knew it was dismissed. Woznicki asked the court to block release of his school personnel records that had been acquired by the district attorney, who was planning to make them public. The state open records law explicitly provides that people who are denied requested records can sue for judicial review of the custodian's decision to withhold the records. In 1996, the state Supreme Court held in Woznicki's case that the law also implicitly must allow the subject of the public records to seek judicial review of a custodian's decision to release them. In subsequent years, local governments went overboard in notifying anyone identified in a requested record, not just the main subject of the record, and then gave them all the chance to argue that release would harm their reputation or privacy interests. The effect was to bog down and practically defeat the intent of the open records law, some might say, according to Bruce Valmetti, anyway. I mean, let me just pause and tell you how these mostly go. Okay? Mr. X gets a Woznicki notice. Okay? And they come to me, and let's say it's something terrible. They say someone so alleged that I did something. Okay? Or mostly that I was found guilty of, or whatever. Okay? They will come to me with the whole thing of things, and I will go through them. And at some great expense and say public record, public record, public record, public record, public record, public record, public record. You could probably sue, but you're probably going to lose. I think I've argued one of those once, and I think we didn't win on a technicality. Um, it's true that if you're going to spend $15,000 to $20,000, you can delay public records there, but due process can delay things. There's absolutely no question about it. But in the vast majority of the cases, you're going to lose. So at best, it's a delay tactic. But I don't want to say tactic. At its best, the result is delay. But, okay. All right. I will spare you going a deeper dive into Woznicki, Lucky Devil you. Um, what's the main holding there, though? It's that the Woznicki had a privacy interest in the release of his records, so therefore he could sue, and so therefore the public records custodian, meaning the person who's got the records, needs to notify Mr. Woznicki or the person who's on the record because they have a privacy interest. And that's what their Mr. Valmetti here is complaining was bogging down and defeating the intent of the open records law. He obviously is going to have a different, not just take on it, but also view on it because he's not advising people who are coming to him. But again, in my experience, these aren't cases that are being filed. And if they are being filed, they're really being resolved pretty quickly because the parties are not really prepared to brief anything. But again, I don't work for a newspaper. So here I think is the question though. Do these people on the Brady list have a privacy interest in their reputation? I would say absolutely 10, 50,000%. Um, Now, should the county sheriff, who was it that released the records? That's the next question. Who's the records custodian? It's the district attorney. Should the district attorney have notified these people? Maybe the answer is yes. Maybe everybody on that list should have had the opportunity to sue first. So let's see. Every time an officer is put on the Brady list, his office notifies their department. Ooh, this is what you call evidence. During an interview with the top 4 Milwaukee County criminal justice system leaders in January, Sheriff Janita Ball and Police Chief Jeffrey Norman said that information isn't passed down to their officers. We don't ask about the Brady list, sir, Chief Norman said. I take it back. That picture that we saw before was Mr. Norman, not the chief deputy, and or Chief Norman, I should say. Yeah, we can see, and this page is beset with pop-up. So there's the gentleman there. All right. 191 officers are on Milwaukee County's Brady list. It is a record of current and former police officers with credibility concerns. I don't like that. I don't like credibility concerns due to allegations of past crimes, dishonesty, or other integrity issues. Credibility concerns does have a good alliteration, and it's not wrong. But it's exculpatory. I mean, it's not wrong. I just wouldn't have used it myself. Is that the information has to be disclosed to defense attorneys if they're called to testify? Between the Milwaukee County Sheriff's Office and the Milwaukee Police Department, the agency said in January that 24 of their current members are on the Brady list. 19 of them work for MPD, but Chief Norman says he doesn't know who they are either. We don't know who's on the Brady list, but it doesn't take too much to understand who could potentially be on the Brady list. Should you know who's on the Brady list? The Jordan, the interviewer asked. No, Chief Norman replied. We have records. Those are our own officers. We provide the DA's office with information, and so it's not a surprise in regard to officers who have credibility issues. I think that response has more to do with the fact that the Brady list was sort of a nebulous thing before it became an official record. It becomes an unofficial blacklist, and it's something that can create real reputational harm to an officer. Oh, Palmer said that. I agree with that. That again is the Wisconsin Professional Police Association. Um, oh yeah, I've met him a couple of times. We took Chief Norman's response to the Wisconsin Professional Police Association. It represents 11,000 law enforcement members across the state. Chief Norman told us he doesn't know who's on the Brady list from his department. Is that acceptable? Jordan asked. And of course not. No, it's not acceptable for any law enforcement administrator. It's not acceptable for the officers who might be on the list to not know who they are. How about it's not acceptable? I would add, frankly, it's not acceptable for the public. Palmer says it isn't just a problem in Milwaukee. He hears about officers being left in the dark about their Brady status in counties across the state. I think that's fair to say. We think there ought to be some uniform standards as to how these decisions are made and how these lists are maintained to the extent that they are maintained, Palmer said. We also believe that officers there should be a requirement that they are notified, and an officer should have some reasonable opportunity to contest or appeal that designation. You heard it here as well, folks. Okay. So again, the headline here, just to give credit where credit is due, Channel 4 Milwaukee. Duty disclosed, MPD, MCSO say they don't tell their officers if they're put on the Brady list. And the byline is Ben Jordan. Oh, way to quote himself. Okay. So there you have it. I think that's the problem, and I'm glad to see that everybody agrees with me. I also add, I think that there's some potential liability out there, but I'm not an attorney. I'm not your attorney. I'm not advising you. We just see what I might think if somebody brought some similar facts to me here. I do want to be clear, but it seems like it's a big problem. So we'll go both ways with that one. All right, take care. Thanks for sticking with us. We'll keep you informed.